The blue light filled the room as the alien message appeared in the center of the Terran Defense Council chamber. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the strange symbols float in the air while the computers worked to translate them. He had seen many alien messages before, but something about this one made his stomach feel heavy. Dr. Lisa Harper stood near the holographic display, her fingers moving quickly over her tablet as she read the translation. She was Earth's best expert on alien languages, and Jake could see worry lines forming on her face as she worked. "This is a formal summons," Lisa announced to the room full of Earth's most important leaders. The Zephyrian Empire, backed by the Centauri Coalition and the Vegan Trade Union, is demanding Earth appear before the Galactic Tribunal within 30 standard days. Captain Ben Rodriguez leaned forward in his chair, his dark eyes focused on the floating message. "What are they charging us with?" Lisa paused and looked around the room before answering. "Aggressive expansion, violation of established trade routes, and crimes against galactic harmony." The room became very quiet. General Rick Hayes, who commanded Earth's military forces, let out a harsh laugh. "Crimes against harmony? We have been cleaning up their messes for the past 15 years. It was true, and everyone in the room knew it. When the Andromedans had launched their bioweapon attacks on innocent colonies, human ships had been the first to respond. When pirates from the Outer Rim had threatened trade convoys, Earth's fleet had volunteered to patrol the dangerous areas. When the strange crystalline entities had begun eating entire planets, human soldiers had died by the thousands to stop them. Ambassador Kate Wilson, who represented Earth in the Federation, shook her head slowly. "This is not about justice. This is about fear. Our colonies have grown too successful. Our technology has become too advanced. They have watched us solve problems they could not handle for hundreds of years." Admiral Morrison stood up from his chair, his weathered face showing the strain of too many battles. "What happens if they find us guilty?" Lisa looked at her notes again. "Forced relocation of all human colonies to areas they choose for us. Heavy taxes on Earth itself. Mandatory technology sharing, which means everything we have developed becomes property of the Federation. And if we refuse to appear at their trial, economic sanctions, military blockade, and eventual forced compliance through military action." The council members looked at each other with grim expressions. They had built something amazing over the past decades. Human colonies thrived on worlds where alien settlements had failed. Human technology solved problems the galaxy had given up on centuries ago. Human society had found a way to balance individual freedom with working together for the common good. Now the very beings they had helped wanted to destroy it all. General Hayes spoke first. "We could fight them." Captain Rodriguez shook his head. "Against 12 major galactic powers? We are good, but we are not that good." Admiral Morrison walked to the large window that looked out over Earth's orbital defense platforms. Hundreds of ships moved in careful formations around the planet, their hulls marked with scars from countless battles. These battles had not been fought for conquest, but to protect innocent people across the galaxy. "There is a third option," Morrison said quietly, without turning around. "We do not fight, and we do not submit." "What do you mean?" Ambassador Wilson asked. The Admiral turned back to face the council. "We do exactly what their message says. We appear before their tribunal. We let them have their show trial, and then we walk away." Dr. Harper looked confused. "Walk away to where?" "They control all the major trade routes, the communication networks. They control what we built for them," Morrison interrupted. "The quantum relay network that spans the galaxy? Human engineering? The defensive grids protecting their core worlds? Our designs? The terraforming technology that made expansion possible? We developed it." The meaning of his words began to sink in around the room. For decades, Humanity had freely shared their innovations with the galaxy. They had connected their systems with galactic infrastructure. They had made themselves necessary for the smooth operation of interstellar civilization. Captain Rodriguez smiled, but it was not a happy smile. If we walk away, we take our technology with us. All of it, Morrison confirmed. Every human colony, every ship, every piece of technology we have shared. We pack up everything and disappear, and we let them figure out how to run their precious galaxy without us. Ambassador Wilson looked troubled. The cost in lives could be enormous. There are billions of aliens who depend on our medical technology, our food distribution networks, our charity, General Hayes finished for her, which they are now using as evidence against us in their fake court. The debate went on through the night, but Jake Morrison could see that the decision was already made in most people's minds. Humanity had spent too many years being the galaxy's protector, its problem solver, and its convenient target for blame. If the Federation wanted to treat them like criminals, they would learn what the galaxy looked like without Earth's helping. Within hours of the meeting ending, coded messages began transmitting to every human colony, every Earth ship, every research station scattered across the galaxy. The message was simple and clear. Pack everything important, prepare for departure, and wait for the signal to leave. The galaxy was about to learn that taking humanity for granted had been their biggest mistake. For 15 years, humans had freely given their best technology, their medical knowledge, their agricultural innovations, and their military protection to species that now wanted to put them on trial for being too successful. The alien leaders thought they could keep all the benefits of human innovation while forcing humans into a subservient role. They believed they could threaten Earth with military action and economic sanctions to make humans comply with their demands. They assumed that humanity would fight back with violence, giving them an excuse to use their combined fleets against Earth. But Admiral Morrison and the Terran Defense Council had chosen a different path. They would give the galaxy exactly what it claimed to want: the complete removal of human influence from galactic affairs. Every human colony would be evacuated. Every piece of human technology would be recovered or destroyed. Every human research station, medical facility, and defense installation would be shut down and removed. The galaxy wanted humanity gone. They would get their wish, but they would also get all the consequences that came with it. When the last human ship departed from the last human colony, the galaxy would be left to solve its own problems, with its own technology and its own resources. It would be a lesson the galaxy would never forget, delivered without a single shot being fired or a single threat being made. Humanity would simply vanish from galactic civilization, taking with them everything that had made that civilization possible. The countdown to Exodus had begun. The Galactic Tribunal met on Nexus Prime, the Federation's most important world, in a massive crystal building that could hold representatives from 1,000 different planets. Ambassador Kate Wilson sat alone at the table meant for the accused, wearing her simple blue diplomatic uniform that looked plain compared to the fancy robes and strange alien forms all around her. The chief prosecutor was a tall Zephyrian named Kethvar, who had 4 arms and a voice that echoed through the huge chamber. He gestured dramatically as he spoke to the assembled delegates from across the galaxy. Honorable Tribunal, Kethvar began. We gather today to address the growing threat posed by the species known as humanity. Kate watched without showing emotion as holographic displays appeared in the air above the chamber floor. The images showed human colonies spreading across worlds that had been considered impossible to live on, human ships patrolling trade routes, and human research stations studying things that had puzzled alien scientists for thousands of years. They expand without asking permission, Kethvar continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. They build colonies on worlds we said were not suitable for life. They develop new technologies, without consulting the proper authorities. They interfere in conflicts that have nothing to do with them. The prosecution spent 3 full days showing the tribunal everything humanity had done wrong according to their laws. They displayed footage of human terraforming ships, turning dead rocks into beautiful garden worlds. They presented evidence of human medical teams treating plague victims on planets that were supposed to be quarantined. They showed recordings of human warships fighting pirates and raiders who threatened innocent civilians. Each piece of evidence was presented as if it proved humanity was aggressive and dangerous. Every act of help was described as unauthorized. Expansion. Every life saved was called a violation of galactic law. On the 4th day, Kate finally stood up to defend humanity. "Honorable delegates," she began, her clear voice reaching every part of the chamber. "The prosecution has shown you what humanity has done. They have shown you worlds where children now play in gardens instead of dying on poisoned ground. They have shown you trade routes where merchants travel safely instead of living in constant fear. They have shown you colonies that grow strong where others failed completely." She paused and looked around the amphitheater at the hundreds of alien faces watching her with different types of eyes. "What they have not shown you is why this troubles them so much." Kate activated her own holographic display system. 15 years ago, the Andromedans released bioweapons on the civilian population of New Kepler. Who responded first? The display showed human medical ships racing toward the infected world at maximum speed. Not the Zephyrian Empire, despite their claims of galactic leadership. Not the Centauri Coalition, despite their huge fleets. Not the Vegan Trade Union, despite their vast economic power. The images changed to show different scenes. When the crystalline entities began eating inhabited worlds alive, who stood against them? The display showed human soldiers, outnumbered and outgunned, holding defensive lines while alien populations escaped behind them. 12,000 human beings died in those battles. Not one of the prosecution's governments offered any help at all. Quiet murmurs began to spread through the assembly as delegates whispered to each other. Kate continued speaking. When pirate fleets threatened the Outer Rim colonies, who volunteered for dangerous patrol duty, the display showed human ships, damaged and limping, returning home from fights with raiders twice their size. The prosecution calls this unauthorized interference. The colonists who lived called it salvation. Prosecutor Kethvar rose from his seat. These actions, while they may appear helpful on the surface, represent unauthorized expansion of human influence across influence? Kate laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut through crystal. "Let me show you what human influence really looks like." The display changed again, this time showing technical diagrams and blueprints. The quantum communication network that allows this tribunal to coordinate across the entire galaxy was designed by human engineers and given away freely. The medical nanites that have made average lifespans 40% longer were developed by human researchers and distributed without asking for payment. The fusion reactors that power your core worlds were designed by humans and given as gifts to the Federation. She pointed to the tribunal chamber itself. Even the translation computers that allow us to understand each other right now were developed by human linguists and freely shared with all member species. The chamber had become completely quiet. Kate lowered her voice until it was barely above a whisper, but the chamber's acoustics carried her words to every corner of the huge space. "You want to know what human influence really looks like? It looks like a galaxy that forgot how to solve its own problems because they knew humanity would always do it for them." The trial ended exactly as everyone expected it would. The tribunal, controlled by the same powers that had brought the charges, found humanity guilty on all counts. The sentence was harsh, but not surprising. Forced movement of all human colonies to areas chosen by the Federation, sharing of all technology, and economic control by alien governments. Kate stood as the verdict was read, her face showing no emotion at all. When the chief judge asked if she had any final words before the sentence was carried out, she smiled. "Thank you," she said simply. "This has been very educational for all of us." As she left the chamber, her communication device made a soft sound. There was a single message from Admiral Morrison, back on Earth. Signal sent. Operation Exodus begins now. By the time the tribunal delegates returned to their home worlds to celebrate their victory, the Exodus had already started. Across the galaxy, human colonies were shutting down their operations. Human ships were departing from ports they had used for decades. Human personnel were quietly packing up 15 years of freely given aid and technical support. The galaxy had made its decision about humanity. They had declared humans to be criminals who needed to be controlled and punished. Now they would learn what their decision actually cost them. The trial was over, but the real judgment was just beginning. Within hours, the first reports began coming in. Communication networks were starting to fail as human-maintained relay stations went offline. Medical facilities were closing as human doctors and technicians departed. Defense systems were shutting down as human engineers packed up their equipment and left. The galaxy had rendered its verdict on humanity, but they had not considered what would happen when humanity rendered its own verdict in return. They were about to discover that some gifts could not be taken by force, only received with gratitude or lost through arrogance. The Exodus had begun, and there would be no going back. Dr. Alan Foster stood at the observation window of the research station orbiting Proxima 7, watching the last transport shuttle connect with their ship. Below them, the planet's surface showed the geometric patterns of human terraforming. Work, huge agricultural areas, atmospheric processing plants, and the shining domes of New Portland Colony. "That's the last group," reported Commander Helen Price, the station's military officer. 47,000 colonists, all their equipment, and their complete seed bank collection. Alan nodded, feeling his throat tighten with emotion. 3 generations of families had called Proxima 7 their home. Now they were refugees, forced to leave a world they had changed from a poisonous wasteland into a beautiful garden paradise. "Any messages from the Proximan government?" he asked. Helen's face darkened with anger. "They are demanding we leave all the infrastructure behind. The atmospheric processors, the water cleaning systems, the agricultural domes. They say these are permanent improvements to their territory." "Their territory," Alan repeated with bitterness in his voice. "They would not even send a survey probe here until we proved it was safe to live on." Through the observation windows, they could see other ships in the evacuation fleet. Massive colony ships that had originally brought Earth's pioneers to the outer systems. Cargo vessels loaded with manufacturing equipment. Research ships carrying decades of scientific data. Escorting them all were the gray shapes of Earth's military fleet. Captain Sam Parker's voice came over the communication system. "All stations, this is Fleet Command. Proxima 7 evacuation is complete. Beginning Phase 2 operations." Phase 2. Alan had helped plan it, but seeing it happen still felt strange and unreal. Across the star system, automated explosive charges went off at exactly the same time. The atmospheric processors that had taken 20 years to build disappeared. In brilliant flashes of light, the orbital manufacturing platforms broke apart, their pieces scattering into empty space. The quantum communication relay that connected Proxima 7 to the galactic network went completely silent. "Dear God," Helen whispered as she watched, "we are really doing this." Similar scenes were happening across dozens of star systems at the same moment. On New Texas, the fusion reactors that powered the colony's industrial base were being taken apart down to their basic components. The Proximan authorities would find empty reactor buildings filled with nothing but useless scrap metal. On New California, the agricultural research stations were destroying themselves, taken with them 30 years of genetic modification work that had made farming possible in alien soil. The humans were not being cruel or vindictive in their actions. They were being completely thorough. Every piece of human technology, every innovation, every freely shared advancement was being recovered or destroyed before they left. They would leave behind empty buildings and dead ground, nothing more than that. Dr. Susan Blake, the fleet's chief expert on alien biology, joined them at the observation window. "The Proximans are screaming about us breaking treaty obligations," she reported with a slight smile. "They are demanding the Federation step in to stop us from leaving." "What are their legal grounds?" Alan asked with curiosity. "Destruction of property, economic sabotage, violation of colonial agreements." Susan shrugged her shoulders. "They are getting very creative with their accusations." Helen laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Colonial agreements that they are using to justify taking our settlements. Economic sabotage of systems we built with our own money and resources. Property destruction of equipment we made and installed ourselves." The irony was completely breathtaking to think about. For 15 years, humanity had poured resources into galactic civilization, asking for nothing in return except the right to exist peacefully. Now that same civilization was claiming ownership of everything humans had built, while at the same time demanding they continue providing free services. "Message coming in from Admiral Morrison," reported the communications officer. "New Geneva. Evacuation complete. Total colonial population recovered. 2.7 million people. All major installations successfully dismantled and removed. 2.7 million people forced to abandon homes they had built with their own hands, because the galaxy had decided their success was somehow a crime." Alan wondered how many of them would ever see their birth worlds again. "Sir," the officer continued, "we are also receiving distress calls from 17 different sectors. The quantum relay network is failing across multiple systems, and several core world governments are requesting immediate technical assistance." Helen raised an eyebrow in surprise. "Already? That was faster than expected." Susan pulled up a status display on her tablet. "It makes perfect sense when you think about it. The relay network was designed with human-built maintenance stations every 50 light years. Take those stations offline, and you lose system-wide coordination within just a few hours." The display showed a galaxy-wide communication network slowly going dark as human maintenance stations shut down one by one. Commerce would stop completely. Military coordination would become impossible. Even basic emergency services would fail, as worlds found themselves cut off from central command structures. "They thought they could keep our infrastructure and get rid of us at the same time," Alan said while shaking his head. "They did not consider that the infrastructure only works because we are constantly maintaining and updating it." A new voice joined their conversation. "That was exactly the point we wanted to make." They turned to see Admiral Morrison himself, his uniform showing the dust and exhaustion of someone who had been coordinating evacuations for 3 straight days without rest. "Admiral," Helen said, straightening her posture, "I did not know you were aboard this ship. They picked me up from the New Geneva operation. I wanted to see this phase personally with my own eyes." Morrison moved to the observation window, watching as the last human ships left Proxima 7's orbit. "Any regrets about what we are doing, Doctor?" Alan thought about the question seriously. Below them, a world that had been humanity's pride was returning to its original dead state. The atmospheric processors were gone forever. The orbital platforms were scattered debris. In 50 years, the atmosphere would return to its toxic baseline, and the agricultural zones would become barren rock again. "No," he said finally with conviction. "They made their choice about us. They can live with all the consequences. Morrison nodded with approval. Phase 3 begins tomorrow morning. By the end of the week, every human research station, every medical facility, every engineering depot will be gone completely. They wanted humanity removed from galactic affairs. He smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. They are about to get exactly what they asked for. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Alan took one last look at Proxima 7. In the distance, he could see Proximan ships moving toward the abandoned colony sites, probably expecting to find fully functional settlements waiting for them. They were going to be very disappointed with what they actually found. 3 weeks after the tribunal's verdict, Chancellor Vex Moore of the Centauri Coalition stood in his command center, staring at displays that showed the slow collapse of galactic civilization. Red warning lights covered the star charts, like a spreading disease, each one representing a critical system failure somewhere in the galaxy. "Give me the report," he ordered his aide, a nervous Rigelian named Kithka, whose tentacles were constantly moving with anxiety. "The situation continues to get worse, Chancellor. The quantum communication network is now working at only 12% of normal capacity. Trade between sectors has dropped by 67%. We have over 200 worlds reporting critical infrastructure failures that they cannot fix." Vex Moore's secondary arms clenched into fists with frustration. "What about the technical support requests we sent out?" No response from any human facility anywhere in the galaxy. All human research stations have gone completely dark. Even the emergency communication channels are totally silent. The Chancellor had been one of the strongest supporters of the tribunal against humanity. The rapid expansion and technological advancement of the human species had threatened the careful balance of power that had kept the Centauri Coalition dominant for 3 centuries. The trial had seemed like a perfect solution. Use legal proceedings to force the humans back into a role where they could be controlled. "Show me what is happening in the Kepler sector," he commanded with growing worry. The main display changed to show a star system in complete chaos. 3 major worlds were experiencing total power grid failures. Their fusion reactors, all based on human designs, had begun shutting down when the automated maintenance systems stopped receiving updates from human technical centers. "What about local technicians?" Vex Moore asked with hope in his voice. "They cannot solve the problems, Chancellor. The human systems were built into everything at the most basic level. They do not just provide power. They manage atmospheric processing, water purification, and agricultural optimization. Without them, these worlds are becoming impossible to live on." Similar problems were happening across all of known space, like a spreading plague. On Vega Prime, the medical nanites that had completely changed healthcare were beginning to break down without regular programming updates from human medical centers. The death rate was climbing every single day. In the Outer Rim territories, worlds that depended on human-designed terraforming technology were watching their atmospheres slowly return to hostile conditions that would kill everyone. "What about the human colonies we have taken control of?" Vex Moore asked, hoping for some good news. Kithka's tentacles writhed with embarrassment and shame. "The infrastructure is completely non-functional, Chancellor. They appear to have systematically destroyed or removed every critical component before they left. Our best engineers estimate it would take decades to rebuild just the atmospheric processors alone." "Decades?" Vex Moore's voice rose to an angry roar that echoed through the command center. Those worlds were feeding billions of people across multiple sectors. "Yes, Chancellor. We are already seeing serious food shortages in 17 different sectors, and the situation is getting worse every day." The terrible irony was becoming crystal clear to everyone involved. The tribunal had accused humanity of aggressive expansion, but their colonies had been feeding much of the galaxy's X-population for years. They had charged humans with unauthorized interference, But that interference had been the only thing holding galactic civilization together. A new alert signal shined through the command center. Kithka checked his data display, and his skin color changed to a pale shade that indicated extreme fear. Chancellor, we are receiving an emergency transmission from the Zephyrian Empire. The Andromedan bioweapons have appeared again on 3 of their border worlds. Vexmore felt his blood turn to ice water in his veins. The Andromedans had been quiet for 5 years, but intelligence reports suggested they were rebuilding their bioweapon capabilities in secret. In the past, any outbreak had been contained within hours by human medical teams equipped with custom nanotreatments that could cure anything. What is the Zephyrian response plan for this crisis? They are requesting immediate human medical assistance, sir. And what is the human response to their request? Kithka's silence told him everything he needed to know. The communication system activated, projecting the image of Emperor Kethvar, the same Zephyrian who had led the prosecution against humanity at the tribunal. His usual arrogance and pride were completely gone, replaced by barely controlled panic and desperation. Chancellor Vexmore, Kethvar began without any of the usual diplomatic pleasantries. We require immediate consultation and assistance on the Andromedan bioweapon situation. The tribunal ruled that human interference in galactic affairs was criminal behavior. Vexmore replied with cold satisfaction. Are you now formally requesting criminal assistance from convicted criminals? Kethvar's 4 arms moved frantically as he tried to find the right words. This is different from before. This is a real emergency. It threatens millions of lives. Every crisis humanity ever addressed was a real emergency, Emperor. Where was your concern for legal precedent when human soldiers were dying to protect your border worlds from these same threats? The conversation went on for more than an hour, growing increasingly desperate on Kethvar's part as he begged for help. Similar calls were coming in from governments across the galaxy. The vegan trade union was facing complete economic collapse as human-maintained trade routes became impossible to travel. The crystalline entities had started expanding again, with no human ships available to maintain the containment fields that had kept them trapped. Chancellor, Kithka interrupted the conversation. We are receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Federation Council. They are calling for an emergency session to meet immediately. Vexmore laughed, but the sound was bitter and full of regret. Let me guess what they want to discuss. They want to talk about reversing the tribunal's decision. Actually, sir, they want to discuss terms for formally requesting human assistance and cooperation. Terms? What terms could we possibly offer? Them now? We just convicted them of crimes against galactic harmony in front of the entire galaxy. I believe that is exactly why they are calling it an emergency session, Chancellor. As the transmission ended, Vexmore stared at the tactical display showing the slow dissolution of everything his civilization had built over thousands of years. Trade routes were going dark one by one. Communication networks were failing completely. Medical crises were spreading without any way to stop them. Defense grids were offline and vulnerable. Humanity had been the invisible force holding the galaxy together, and the tribunal had just cut every single connection that made galactic civilization possible. The humans had walked away without firing a single weapon, without making any threats, without even making a formal protest. They had simply done exactly what the tribunal had demanded of them. They had removed themselves completely from galactic affairs. Sir, Kithka said quietly, there is one more thing our intelligence networks have discovered. They have detected massive human fleet movements toward the galactic rim. They appear to be establishing completely new colonies in previously unexplored sectors. How many ships are we talking about? All of them, sir. Every human vessel, every colony ship, every research platform. They are not just leaving our controlled space. They are leaving our entire region of the galaxy. Vexmore closed his eyes, and felt the weight of his mistake crushing down on him. The humans were not just withdrawing from galactic politics as punishment. They were abandoning the galaxy entirely, taking 15 years of technological advancement and civilizational support with them to places no one else had ever explored. The Tribunal had wanted to make humanity serve them. Instead, they had driven away the only species capable of holding their crumbling civilization together. And the humans had accomplished it all without firing a single shot. 2 years after the Exodus began, Captain Lisa Grant stood on the observation deck of the USV New Horizon, watching construction robots put the finishing touches on humanity's first deep space colony. The world below them, which they had named Terra Nova Prime, was completely different from anything they had left behind in Federation space. Final atmospheric reading report, announced Chief Engineer Bob Martinez as he joined her at the large viewing window. Oxygen at 21%, nitrogen at 78%, trace gases all within perfect ranges. We are breathing completely natural air, Captain. Lisa smiled as she looked down at the beautiful world spinning below them. Terra Nova Prime had needed no terraforming, no atmospheric processors, no complex life support systems at all. It was simply a garden world that had been waiting for them in the unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. And it was only the first of dozens of similar worlds they had discovered. "What is our population count?" she asked while watching small aircraft move between the growing cities. 7 million people, and still growing every day. We have immigration requests from another 12,000 humans still in Federation space who are trying to make their way out here since the Exodus began. That was the most surprising part of their situation. Even after 2 full years, humans were still escaping from Federation territory, abandoning careers and property to join the Exodus. Apparently, life under the Tribunal's restrictions had proven even worse than anyone had expected it would be. Dr. Carl Lewis, their chief expert on alien biology, walked up to them with a data tablet in his hands. "Captain, you need to see this. Information. We have made contact with an indigenous species living in this region." Lisa's attention became sharp and focused. "Are they hostile toward us?" "Quite the opposite of hostile. They call themselves the Keepers. They have been watching our colonization efforts from a distance, and they want to meet with us." The Keepers, as it turned out, were an ancient species that had been quietly observing galactic civilization for thousands of years. They were peaceful, highly advanced, and completely invisible to Federation sensors because of their mastery of dimensional phasing technology. Ambassador Kate Wilson, who had insisted on joining the colony expedition despite offers of safer assignments, led the first contact team. The Keeper's representative was a being of shifting energy patterns contained within a roughly humanoid framework that glowed with soft light. "We have watched your species with great interest for many years," the Keeper communicated through harmonic frequencies that went directly into their minds without needing language. "Your exodus from the core regions was most instructive to observe." Kate leaned forward in her chair with curiosity. "You observed what happened at the Tribunal?" "We observe all things that occur within our dimensional space. Your species demonstrated remarkable wisdom in your choice to withdraw from that situation." "Wisdom?" Kate laughed, but the sound was bitter with old pain. "We were driven out like criminals." "No," the Keeper corrected her gently. "You chose to leave rather than compromise your principles and values. This is exactly why we wish to make contact with your species. The Federation species believe civilization requires dominance hierarchies, resource competition, and technological hoarding for survival. Your species has demonstrated a completely different approach." The conversation continued for many hours. The Keepers revealed that they had been waiting for a species mature enough to share their advanced dimensional technologies with. They had watched the Federation for thousands of years, but its member species remain trapped in endless cycles of competition and exploitation that never led to real progress. You built great things without taking from others, the Keeper explained with what seemed like approval. You shared your knowledge without expecting anything in return. You protected those who could not protect themselves. When faced with injustice, you chose exile over compliance with evil. These are the qualities we have been seeking for a very long time. Within just a few months, humanity found itself with access to technologies that made their previous achievements look like primitive cave paintings. Dimensional phase drives that could cross galactic distances in hours instead of years. Matter converters that could transform raw elements into any needed resource. Consciousness transfer systems that made death merely a temporary inconvenience. But the most valuable gift was knowledge itself. The Keepers shared the locations of hundreds of garden worlds scattered throughout unexplored space, each one perfect for human colonization, without any terraforming work required. Meanwhile, reports from Federation space painted a picture of accelerating collapse and chaos. The bioweapon outbreaks had spread to 17 worlds before burning themselves out completely, killing millions of innocent people. The crystalline entities had consumed 3 more inhabited systems, while Federation fleets watched helplessly. Pirate fleets, no longer contained by human patrol ships, were causing massive destruction on shipping lanes throughout known space. Do you have any regrets about leaving? Admiral Morrison asked during one of his regular visits to Terra Nova. Prime Kate thought about the question as they walked through New Geneva Park, watching human children play alongside young keepers in a scene that would have been completely impossible in Federation space. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we had stayed and fought them, she admitted honestly. We would have won the battles and lost the war, Morrison replied with certainty. They had 12 major powers aligned against us. Even if we had defeated them militarily, we would have become exactly what they accused us of being, an aggressive, expansionist force dominating the galaxy through superior firepower. And now, what are we? Morrison gestured toward the horizon, where the tall spires of New Terra City gleamed in the light of twin suns. Now we are free to become what we were always meant to be. The Federation wanted to chain us down and harvest our innovations for their own benefit. The Keepers want to help us reach our full potential as a species. A soft chime from Kate's communication device interrupted their peaceful conversation. Ambassador, we are receiving a transmission from Federation space. It is marked as urgent diplomatic priority. Kate let out a long sigh. Put it through to us. The hologram that appeared was Chancellor Vexmore, looking much older and more tired than when she had last seen him at the tribunal. His proud bearing was completely gone, replaced by obvious desperation and defeat. Ambassador Wilson, he began in a voice that shook slightly, I am transmitting on behalf of the Galactic Federation. Council, we wish to discuss terms for the restoration of diplomatic relations between our governments. Kate kept her face completely neutral and emotionless. I was under the impression that humanity had been found guilty of crimes against galactic harmony. Has the tribunal reversed its verdict officially? The circumstances have changed significantly. We now recognize that certain aspects of the charges may have been based on incomplete information and misunderstandings. I see. And what would these new diplomatic relations involve exactly? Full restoration of human colonies to their original territories, withdrawal of all economic sanctions, and a formal apology from the Federation Council for any misunderstandings. In exchange for what services? Vexmore's shoulders sagged with defeat. The restoration of human technical support for critical galactic infrastructure, medical assistance for the ongoing health crisis, defense cooperation against external threats that we cannot handle alone. Kate almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Chancellor, I am afraid that will not be possible. Humanity has moved beyond the Federation sphere of influence. We have new alliances, new territories, and completely new priorities. Name your terms, Maxmore said with complete desperation in his voice. Anything you want. Full Federation membership with permanent council. Seats, exclusive trading rights throughout our space. Technology licensing agreements worth trillions. Whatever you require from us. You are misunderstanding the situation completely, Chancellor. This is not a negotiation between equals. We are not angry with the Federation anymore. We are simply no longer interested in it at all. The transmission ended, leaving Kate and Morrison alone in the park. In the distance, they could see human ships departing for newly discovered worlds, carrying the next wave of colonists to star systems the Federation would never even know existed. Do you think they will keep trying to contact us? Morrison asked with amusement. Kate shrugged her shoulders. Probably for a while, but it does not matter anymore. We are building something completely new out here, something the Federation could never understand or accept. They had their chance to be our partners. They chose to be our judges instead. As the twin suns set over Terra Nova Prime, Kate thought about the strange journey that had brought them to this place. The galaxy had underestimated humanity's value when they had it, and overestimated their own importance when they had lost it. Now humanity was free to explore the vast unknowns beyond the galactic rim, partnered with beings who valued cooperation over domination, building a civilization based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical control and fear. The Federation could keep its tribunal, its laws, and its slowly crumbling empire. Humanity had found something infinitely better.